Hey, everybody. I'm Jim Slaughter, longtime parliamentarian to the MTA. I've been asked to talk a little bit about the upcoming annual meeting, and whether you're a first timer, in which case, congratulations, or whether you've done this before, this will just be a reminder of some of the rules. Probably is good for everybody, because even those who do it all the time, it's once a year, so it's easy to forget exactly how things are done. I've been asked to talk a little bit about the order of business and what's likely to happen each day, talk a little bit about the rules, talk a little bit about how you go to a mic and get business done. But first, I do want to say congratulations on being a delegate. It really is a big deal, because when you think about it, at the end of the day, you all assembled will be doing business on behalf of the entire association and all of its members, and that is a big responsibility. After all, when the annual meeting is in session, it's the highest authority and can do most anything that the body hasn't given to somebody else as a responsibility in the bylaws. So a lot of stuff is going to be covered, from the budget to the new business items to the standing rules to all sorts of things that you'll be voting on during the meeting. So again, congratulations. It really is a big deal. In terms of the schedule, I have to say, I don't know what the schedule is going to be exactly. And that's because I've seen a lot of your annual meetings, but at the end of the day, the schedule is going to be what you want it to be. I have an idea of what's been done in the past, but the body could decide to do something in a different order for some reason. But generally, the way things play out is that both days are very, very busy. On Friday, the meeting tends to start with a call to order by the president, which makes everything official. And then following the call to order, there's a number of ceremonial things, as you can expect, and there are a number of speeches from people who are important to the organization. Then there's a credentials committee report, and that is that a committee reports how many people are at the annual meeting and that everybody is who you are supposed to be, and by a vote, you make the convention official. Following the credentials report, there's the adoption of the order of business with flexibility, which is the general outline for how things will be done unless something needs to be moved. And then almost immediately, the annual business starts getting into business. And by that, I mean there's the consideration and voting on standing rules proposals. There are bylaws amendments that will come forward. There are some ballot initiatives. And then typically, there are new business items. There are new business items that do impact the budget. There are new business items that do not impact the budget. And typically, we try to get the ones that would impact the budget done early on so that they won't impact the budget later. And then the rest of the day on that day tends to be speeches, both from candidates running for office as well as from other important people that you need to hear from. But as you can hear, it is a busy day. And then it starts again the next day. And on Saturday, there is again a credentials committee report with any updates that might have happened. There are a number of awards that are given out to recognize people within and outside the organization for important things that they have done. And then we continue with all the new business items, of which there typically are many. Eventually, we get to the budget. There are two parts to the budget. There's an operating budget and there's a PR organizing budget. Both of those are considered and voted on. Of course, don't forget there's elections going on during the annual meeting. So it really does tend to be filled. So particularly if you're a new delegate, all I can advise is pay attention, listen to what the presiding officer says, because that will be excellent direction on exactly where we are and what's going on. And don't look too much at phones or try to talk to people or leave the room for very long, because you can miss something really important very quickly with as quickly as business goes at the annual meeting. So that's generally the outline. And now let's talk a little bit about how business gets done at the annual meeting. Again, there are a lot of things that will come forward. There will be new business items. There will be proposals to amend things. And in some ways, they're covered pretty similarly. If you go to a microphone, if you want to speak, and there's nothing wrong with being an observer and voting, you don't have to go to a microphone. But if you decide to speak to something, you will find at the microphone a number of colored cards. There's a green card, there's a red card, there's an orange card, and those help the spotters on stage identify who wants to speak and to have some idea of which side they want to speak on. This probably won't come as a surprise, but the green card is to speak in favor of something, or if you want to make a motion, if you're the maker of a proposal. The red card is if you want to speak against something, or you wish to make a motion. The yellow card, which that might need an explanation, the yellow card is for asking questions. And so in theory, if you hold up a yellow card, the first thing out of your mouth really ought to be who, what, why, where, how. And in fact, the presiding officer may say, what is your question? So that you know hey, let's get to a question pretty quickly. In terms of the cards, and you may wonder, I've raised card, then what? The next thing out of your mouth after you're recognized should be who are you and where you're from, because the rules do say you're supposed to identify yourself both by name and who you are representing, and then you are allowed to speak after you've done that. In terms of recognition, there are spotters, as I mentioned, who are trying to keep track of things and to keep things fair. And they have a lot of work. And the reason I say that is they're trying to pay attention to and make certain that a maker of a motion always gets to speak first if possible. And then everybody's allowed to speak a first time. And then nobody should speak a second time as long as somebody wants to speak a first time. And once you've spoken twice to an issue, you're not supposed to speak a third time. So they really are doing their best. Oh, and when possible, the chair tries their best to alternate pro and con. And with the cards, we rotate through pro debate with a green, red debate with a con, yellow card with a question, and we will keep rotating through the various cards as they come up. So the spotters really do a great job with all that is going on, and they're just trying to make certain that you all have a good, fair meeting and that everybody who wants to talk has a chance to talk. In terms of the rules, there are a number, but they're not that unwieldy. I will mention there are fewer than 15 rules total. So if you've never been to an annual meeting before, I'd recommend get the delegate handbook, either electronically or if there's a published version. There are fewer than 15 rules. They only take up about 3 pages. I'm not going to read them, but I am going to point out a couple that tend to get asked about every year. And so I'll mention the ones that are rather important. Under Rule 6, which is the order of business, it says no member shall speak in debate more than twice to the same question. Well, that's what Roberts says, and you all have the same rule. Nor longer than 2 minutes at one time. So if you get up, you have 2 minutes, and then you should not keep speaking. Someone else will get to speak, and then you might have a chance to speak a second time if everybody who wants to speak a first time has a chance to speak. No delegate shall use a yellow card for more than 1 minute at a time. Well, remember, a yellow card is to ask a question. So please don't ask a question that goes on for more than a minute, because that's a pretty long time. Upon recognition, all delegates shall identify themselves by stating their name and local association or retired member. There's another rule that says no delegate speaking in debate may move the previous question. Previous question is just a fancy word for moving to closed debate. So basically, what you all have decided in your rules is, hey, if you want to get up and speak for something, get up and speak for it. If you want to get up and speak against something, get up and speak against it. But don't get up and speak for your full time and then at the end say, now that I've spoken, nobody else needs to speak and I want to move to closed debate. So if you want to move to closed debate, get up and just do that. Say your name, say where you're from, and I move to closed debate, but don't talk first about the proposal that's on the floor. There is a rule that says, with few exceptions, all substantive motions shall be submitted in writing to the presiding officer. So you have something you want to do, go ahead and write it out, submit it, and that way it'll be easy to get up on the screen and everybody can see it. I mentioned the yellow cards earlier, and there's a rule about them too, and it is when debate begins, yellow cards will be recognized in order up to a maximum of 5 yellow cards, followed by rotation of red, green, yellow, or green, red, yellow, and so on. What's that all about? Well, as an annual meeting, you all have decided we want to get some questions out of the way first. So we're going to let there be 5 questions in a row, up to 5. If there aren't 5 questions, we'll move on. But there can be up to 5 questions. And then following the questions, we'll begin the rotation again of green, red, yellow, or red, green, yellow, depending on who has cards up and where we start. And finally, there is a rule that says debate on a motion shall not be closed until there have been at least 2 speakers for and 2 speakers against on any motion, with the exception that debate may be closed if there are no speakers for or against the motion at the microphones or on the online platform queue. What that rule is about is Roberts lets you move to closed debate at any time. So you all have decided that, well, no, we'd like for there to be at least up to 2 speakers pro, 2 speakers con. Again, If there are no speakers on one side or it's missing, then you could move on. But in theory, there's going to be two speakers pro and two speakers con if there's a lot of debate. If you're interested in what kinds of things can I do at the meeting, there's even a parliamentary motions guide that's available in the delegate handbook. There are a number of motions. Most of those, by the way, do not come up at the annual meeting. There are only a couple that we see regularly. I'm going to mention three that are pretty important and you might know about or not know about. What is the motion to close debate? If you feel like there has been sufficient debate, and again, if there are speakers, there have to be two pro, two con, but if there have been sufficient speakers and you feel debate has gone on long enough, you can move to close debate. The fancy word for that is the motion for the previous question. You don't have to be that fancy. You just need to be recognized on a green or a red card, and then you would move to close debate. If there's a second, we'll vote on it, and if the body wants to close debate, then debate gets closed. The other motion I want to mention is the motion request for information. As I mentioned earlier, that's a yellow card. Request for information means I have a question, preferably not a question you already know the answer to. It's so that you can get some information about the motion that is being discussed on the floor. And again, use a yellow card for that. And the only other motion I'm going to mention is parliamentary inquiry. What's that? That's how you get to ask the chair for help. Through a parliamentary inquiry, you can ask, what are we talking about right now? How would I get this referred to a committee if I wanted it to be studied by somebody else? Any question about parliamentary procedure, you can ask through a parliamentary inquiry, and either the chair will answer the question or the chair will ask me to help with the question. And more importantly, except for when we're in the middle of debate and I can't talk to people, whenever there's a break or before or after the sessions, if you have a question about parliamentary procedure, just find me. I am happy to talk about meeting procedure. Whether you've been doing this for a long time or whether you're brand new, I am happy to talk a little bit about how meetings are run. I will talk meeting procedure until your eyes roll up into the backs of your head. And with that, congratulations again on being a delegate. I look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks, and I'm happy to help you all have a productive annual meeting.